The sky of planet Varth burned red like fire. The ground trembled with every blast from the war above. Smoke and dust covered everything. In the middle of the chaos, one man ran through the broken field. Eli Grant, a human medic. His uniform was torn, his breathing heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. He was not here to fight. He was here to save. All around him, alien and human soldiers lay on the ground, some crying for help, some already gone. The air smelled like metal, blood, and smoke. Eli pushed forward, clutching his medical bag. "Hold on, I'm coming," he shouted to no one and everyone at once. Then, through the dust, he saw movement, not human. A tall figure stumbled out from behind a wrecked transport ship. Armor cracked, weapon broken, blue blood dripping from her leg. Her body shimmered faintly in the red light, skin made of smooth scales that caught the sun like glass. Eli froze. It was a Vel'Na warrior, one of the alien soldiers humanity had been fighting for years. She was their enemy. Every instinct told him to hide or move away. But she fell to her knees, gasping in pain, her hand pressing on the wound that refused to close. Without thinking, Eli dropped his bag and ran toward her. A warning shot hissed past his head, melting a rock behind him. He ducked and dove into the dirt, crawling toward her as the battlefield rumbled with more explosions. When he reached her, her eyes snapped open, bright silver with a line of fire in the center. "Don't touch me, human," she hissed, voice rough and trembling. Eli didn't listen. He tore a strip from his sleeve, pressing it over the glowing wound on her thigh. She screamed, claws digging into the sand, but the bleeding slowed. "Stay still," he said firmly. "You're going to make it worse." Her breathing came in short bursts. She tried to push him away, but her strength faded. "Wyatt, help me," she whispered weakly, confusion in her eyes. "Because you're hurt," Eli said simply. She stared at him, this small, exhausted human risking his life for her, and didn't know what to say. On her world, mercy was weakness. But this man, he looked at her like she was just another life to save. A deep rumble shook the ground again. Over the hill, enemy drones appeared, hovering metal spheres scanning for movement. If they spotted them, both would die. Eli looked around desperately, grabbing the alien's arm. "We need to move." She tried to stand, but her leg gave out. He caught her before she hit the ground again. For a moment, their faces were close. She could see the dirt and sweat on his face, the small scar on his cheek. He could see the fear behind her sharp eyes. "Come on," he said, putting her arm over his shoulder. "I'm not leaving you here." They stumbled forward together, step by step, through the ruined field. Every second, Eli expected to be shot. Every breath, he felt the heat of her blood soaking his sleeve. Behind them, one of the drones spotted movement and locked on. A red targeting beam lit the dust beside them. "Down!" Eli shouted, pulling her behind a half-buried transport panel. A blast hit nearby, sending dirt and debris flying. For a few seconds, everything was silent except their ragged breathing. Then Eli looked at her wound. It was swelling fast, the edges glowing like fire. He reached for his bag, mixing a human coagulant with alien gel he found in her broken pack. "This might sting," he muttered. As he pressed it against her skin, she screamed again, this time louder, shaking with pain. But then the glow began to fade. Her breathing slowed. The bleeding stopped. Eli sat back, exhausted, watching her eyes flutter open again. "You'll live," he said with a small smile. She looked at him long and hard before whispering, "You're either brave or foolish, human." "Maybe both," Eli replied. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky, not from clouds but from ships above. The war was still raging, but here in this small crater of dust and blood, a human and an alien sat side by side, enemies by law, but something else by choice. And as another explosion shook the ground, Eli whispered, "Stay with me, soldier. I'm not your enemy." The story had just begun. The night on planet Varth was silent, broken only by the soft hum of alien machines scanning the battlefield. Eli Grant sat near the mouth of a cave, wiping sweat and dust from his face. Inside, the wounded Vel'Na commander lay on a bed of rags and metal plates. Her breathing was shallow but steady now. He had carried her all the way from the crash site, one slow step at a time, his back screaming with pain. Every few meters he thought he might collapse, but something about the way she kept whispering, "Don't leave me," gave him strength. Now as the stars glowed through the smoke, Eli checked the wound again. The swelling had gone down. The strange mix of human and Vel'Na medicine seemed to be working. He couldn't believe it nor explain it. The alien stirred. Her silver eyes opened slowly, locking on him. Still alive, she murmured in her deep voice. I didn't think humans were good at saving enemies. Eli gave a tired smile. We're not very good at watching people die either. Her gaze lingered on him, sharp and curious. You're different, he shrugged. I'm a medic. We're all a little different. The silence stretched between them. Outside, the red moonlight poured into the cave, shining on her cracked armor. Eli noticed symbols etched into the metal, markings of rank and honor. He finally asked, What's your name? She hesitated, then said quietly, Commander Tisari of the Vel'Na Legion. Commander, huh? Eli replied, trying to sound casual. Guess that makes you my boss for now. Tisari's lips twitched, the faintest trace of amusement. You speak too much for a dying world soldier. He ignored the insult. And you complain too much for someone I just saved. For a brief second, something changed in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, something softer. But before she could reply, the distant sound of engines echoed through the canyon. Tisari sat up quickly, pain flashing across her face. My soldiers, she said. They're looking for me. Eli tensed. Good news for you, bad news for me. She nodded slowly. If they find us together, they'll kill you on sight. He gave a small laugh. Story of my life. He reached for his medical kit again, rechecking her vitals. You're not ready to move. Tell them I'm your prisoner or something. Tisari looked confused. You'd trust me to protect you? A human? Eli looked her in the eyes and said simply, You're alive because I did. That answer stunned her more than any weapon. No one had ever spoken to her like that, with calm honesty, not fear. She had spent her whole life fighting humans, hearing that they were cruel, selfish, and weak, yet this one had carried her through fire just to save her. Moments later, bright searchlights swept across the canyon walls. The sound of alien voices grew louder. Eli could see the shadows of armored soldiers approaching. They're here, she whispered, reaching for her weapon, but her hand trembled too much to hold it. Then let me do the talking, Eli said. Standing up, when the soldiers stormed into the cave, they froze at the sight, their proud commander lying beside a human medic. Weapons rose instantly, glowing blue at the tips. One soldier barked, Step away from her, human. Eli raised his hand slowly. She's injured. I stopped the bleeding. Another shouted, Lies. You infected her. But before they could fire, Tisari forced herself to speak. Her voice, though weak, carried authority. Stand down, she ordered. He saved my life. The soldiers hesitated, unsure if they heard correctly. Commander? One asked, lowering his weapon. Do as I say, she growled. Or face my blade when I recover. Eli glanced at her, surprised. She gave him a small, tired nod, a silent thank you hidden behind her pride. As the soldiers carried her toward their ship, one of them pushed Eli to his knees. You're coming too, human, he said. Eli smirked. Figures. The cave emptied, leaving behind only the dust and the faint echo of trust, the kind that could change a war. Eli's wrists were bound with glowing restraints that pulsed every few seconds, sending a sharp sting through his arms. Two Vel'Na soldiers marched him down the metallic corridor of their ship. The walls hummed with quiet energy, and alien symbols shifted across transparent screens as they passed. Every glance he received was full of disgust. To them, he was a filthy invader who had dared to touch their commander. At the end of the corridor, heavy doors slid open. The room beyond was bright and cold, and on the medical chamber. Commander Tisari lay on a healing bed surrounded by blue light, her wound sealed by a patch of nanoflesh. She looked stronger now, her silver eyes open, her tail resting quietly beside her. When she saw Eli brought in, she motioned weakly. Release him, she ordered. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. Commander, that human saved me, she interrupted sharply. If he wanted me dead, I would not be speaking now. Reluctantly, they removed the cuffs. Eli rubbed his wrists, muttering, Thanks for the hospitality. Tisari tilted her head, curious. You speak as if you are not afraid, he shrugged. I've been shot at, buried, and now I'm a guest on an alien warship. What's left to fear? A faint smile crossed her lips, but it faded quickly when another Vel'Na entered. General Cora, her second in command. His armor was perfect, his expression cold. Commander, we found this human with you on the field, Cora said, voice filled with contempt. We should eject him into space before he infects the crew. Tasari sat up, ignoring the pain. You will not touch him. He risked his life to pull me from the wreck. Cora's eyes narrowed, perhaps to use you as bait. You know their kind, always pretending to be noble until they stab you in the back. Eli took a deep breath. You can believe whatever you want, General. But I didn't drag your commander out of a burning crater just to hurt her. The alien soldier stirred angrily, but Tasari raised a hand. Enough! Cora glared at Eli, then back to his commander. The Council will demand answers. You brought an enemy aboard our flagship. That is a crime, Commander. I will answer to the Council, she replied firmly. Not to fear. Cora's jaw tightened. Then let him stay in the med bay, right under guard. When he left, silence filled the room. Eli looked around at the glowing instruments. You know, he said quietly, you could have let them toss me out. Would have made your life easier. Tasari turned her gaze toward him. Perhaps. But I owe a life debt now, and Vel'Na honor demands I repay it. Eli smiled faintly. I'll take that over getting spaced. She stared at him for a long moment before asking softly, Why did you save me, human? You could have run. You could have hidden. He looked down at his bandaged hands. Because you were bleeding. And because I couldn't just walk away. Her eyes softened, but only for a second. Then she looked toward the viewing window, where the stars burned white against the void. Mercy is a strange weapon, she whispered. Hours passed. Tasari slept under the healing light, and Eli sat nearby, cleaning his tools. 2 guards watched him closely, their hands never leaving their weapons. Still, for the first time in days, he felt calm. Then the ship trembled. A deep alarm echoed through the corridor. One of the guards barked, Enemy fleet detected, incoming! Eli looked up sharply. What's happening? The guard ignored him, but Tasari opened her eyes. The Draven, she murmured. Raiders! They attack everything, human or Vel'Na. The lights flickered red. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Eli grabbed his medkit automatically. You're in no shape to fight, he said. Tasari struggled to stand, her tail flicking behind her. And you are not a soldier. He met her eyes. No, but I'm not leaving anyone to die either. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then, through the blaring alarm, she said quietly, Perhaps mercy has its uses after all. Outside, the Draven fleet descended, and the human who had once been an enemy prepared to save them again. The Vel'Na flagship floated above Varth's burning skies like a silver scar in the darkness. Inside, the Hall of Judgment shimmered with blue light, walls alive with flowing runes and silent guards. Eli Grant stood alone in the center of the chamber, wrists unbound but surrounded by eyes that glowed with suspicion. At the high end of the hall, 3 counselors sat upon raised thrones of crystal, ancient leaders of the Vel'Na fleet. Between them stood Commander Tasari, her armor freshly repaired, though a faint limp showed where the wound had been. Human, one of the counselors began, his voice deep and echoing. You entered our territory. You interfered with a Vel'Na officer. You boarded a military ship without invitation. Do you deny these charges? Eli straightened. No, sir. I don't deny them. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Tasari's tail flicked once, white nervous, restrained. Then why, the counselor continued, should your life be spared? Eli looked up, meeting their alien eyes without fear. Because I didn't come here to fight. I came to stop someone from dying. The hall went quiet. Even the humming walls seemed to pause. You expect us to believe mercy guided you? Another counselor asked, disbelief heavy in his tone. Your kind has slaughtered ours for decades. Eli nodded slowly. I know what my kind has done, but I also know what I've done. I didn't see an enemy in that crater. I saw a person bleeding out. I'm a medic. My oath is to save lives, not take them. The first counselor leaned forward. Even the life of your enemy? Eli didn't flinch, especially that. The room filled with whispers, and some mocking, some curious. A few of the younger officers exchanged uncertain glances. Tasari finally spoke. He speaks truth. He treated my wound with his own supplies even after being fired upon by our drones. Without him, I would not stand here now. Her voice carried through the chamber like thunder. He risked everything to save me. One of the counselors turned his sharp gaze to her. Commander, you defend a human, the very species that has spilled Vel'Na blood across 6 systems. Tasari's eyes glowed faintly. And I would do so again. If honor means anything, then we cannot repay life with death. The hall stirred uneasily. Cora, standing among the guards, stepped forward. "With respect, Commander," he said coldly, "this human could be manipulating you. We do not know his motives," Eli sighed. "If I wanted to manipulate anyone, I wouldn't have dragged your commander through a war zone on foot. I'd have left her there." The honesty in his tone silenced even Cora for a moment. The council leader raised a hand. "Enough. The council will deliberate." Guards escorted Eli out into a side corridor, long, dim, and lined with glowing panels that pulsed like slow heartbeats. As he waited, he could hear muffled voices through the chamber door. He couldn't tell whether they were shouting in anger or debate. Minutes passed. Then the door opened. Tessari emerged looking weary but calm. "Well?" Eli asked quietly. "They could not decide," she said. "Two voted to execute you. One voted to release you. The council leader will give the final word after the fleet stabilizes." Eli gave a small laugh. "So I'm not dead yet. I'll take it." Before she could reply, a sharp alarm blared across the ship, deeper and harsher than before. The floor vibrated under their feet. Cora's voice came through the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. Enemy swarm approaching from Vector 7. Eli frowned. "Swarm? You mean those Draven things?" Tessari's expression hardened. "Yes, they hunt everything that breathes, human, Vel'Na, all the same." As the hallway lights flashed red, she turned to him. "You're still under guard. But if you truly are what you claim to be, human, then this is your chance to prove it." He looked toward the trembling walls and the growing rumble of war outside. "Guess my trial's not over yet," he said quietly. She nodded. "No, Eli Grant, it's only just begun." Outside the viewport, the stars flickered, and the Draven swarm descended like a sea of burning wings. The Vel'Na flagship shuddered as explosions rippled across its hull. Red warning lights flashed through every corridor, and alarms echoed like thunder in a storm. Eli Grant braced himself against a wall as soldiers rushed past, shouting commands in their strange language. The ship tilted violently and sparks rained from the ceiling. "Status report," Tessari barked, her voice sharp despite her limp. A young officer replied, "Draven swarm breaching outer shields. Hull integrity at 60%. Eli turned toward her, eyes wide. "How many ships?" "Too many," she said grimly. "Hundreds." The entire vessel vibrated again as plasma fire struck the side. A large monitor flickered, showing the dark space outside, filled with insect-like warships. The Draven were terrifying. Massive organic machines with glowing red cores and spiked wings. They didn't communicate. They didn't take prisoners. They devoured anything that moved. Tessari pointed toward the medbay doors. "Human, stay here. This is no place for you." Eli grabbed his medical bag tighter. "You're losing soldiers out there. I'm a medic, I can help. You'll die. Then I'll die doing what I came here to do." She stared at him for a moment, that stubborn, unshaken look on his face, and finally nodded. "Fine, stay close to me." They ran down the corridor together. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of energy discharges. As they reached the lower deck, the doors opened to chaos. Vel'Na soldiers fought desperately against Draven drones that had already boarded. The creatures screeched, tall, black, and skeletal with burning eyes. Eli ducked as a plasma bolt tore past him. He slid behind a console, pulling out his medkit. One soldier screamed, clutching his arm, acid burning through his armor. Eli sprinted to him without hesitation. "Hold still," he shouted, spraying a neutralizer onto the wound. The alien soldier winced, but the sizzling stopped. Others looked at him in disbelief. A human saving their comrade. Tessari fought like lightning beside him, blades flashing. She cut down a Draven that lunged toward Eli, its green blood splattering across the floor. "Keep your head down, medic," she shouted. "I'm trying," he yelled back, pressing a seal over another wounded soldier's chest. Suddenly, the ship's deck shook violently. A voice came through the comms. "Reactor core hit. Containment breach imminent." Tessari's eyes widened. "If the core fails, the ship will explode." Eli looked at her. "What do we do?" "There's a manual override, deep in the reactor bay," she said. "But it's full of radiation now." He didn't hesitate. "Then we go." She grabbed his arm. "You wouldn't survive." He looked her straight in the eye. "You said I could prove myself." "Let me." For a moment, the commander hesitated. Then, with a growl, she turned to her soldiers. "Seal this deck. I'm going with him." They sprinted through the smoke-filled corridors toward the reactor bay. Each step echoed with the sound of distant explosions. The closer they got, the hotter the air became. When the doors opened, they were met with a blinding blue light, the reactor pulsing like a heart on fire. Sparks flew as conduits burst. Radiation alarms wailed. Eli covered his mouth with a cloth and ran to the control console. "Where's the override?" he shouted. Tessari pointed toward a panel half buried under debris. "There." He crawled over, ripping open wires and melting insulation. The panel flickered weakly. He tried to type, but the system was in alien script. "I can't read this." "I can," she said, joining him. "You stabilize, I reroute." Working side by side, they fought to keep the system alive. The temperature climbed. Eli's hands burned as he welded a broken pipe shut with his plasma torch. Sweat dripped into his eyes. Tessari gritted her teeth, fighting dizziness from the radiation. "Almost done," she gasped. A Draven drone burst through the side wall, shrieking. Without thinking, Eli grabbed a loose cable and slammed it into the creature. Electricity arced through the room. The drone convulsed and fell, smoking. Tessari hit the final command on the console. "Containment stabilized." The lights shifted from red to yellow. The roar of the reactor softened. For the first time, the ship stopped shaking. They both sank to the floor, breathing hard. Eli's palms were raw and bleeding. Tessari looked at him. This small, fragile human who had faced death to save her ship. "You shame us with your courage, Grant," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "You're welcome." Outside the viewport, the Draven ships began to retreat, their swarm breaking apart under the returning fire of the Vel'Na fleet. The battle was ending, but something far greater had begun. The battle was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than the sound of war. The Vel'Na flagship drifted quietly above Varth, its hull scorched and scarred. Fires still burned in the lower decks, and med drones floated through corridors filled with smoke and rubble. Eli Grant sat on the floor of the med bay, his arms bandaged, his face pale from exhaustion. Around him, alien soldiers who just hours ago had called him enemy, now waited in line for treatment. Some nodded to him in silent thanks. Others avoided his eyes, unsure how to feel about a human saving their lives. Commander Tessari entered slowly, her armor partially removed, revealing the blue sheen of her scaled skin beneath. The medbay lights reflected in her silver eyes as she watched Eli finish stitching a soldier's wound. He noticed her and stood up immediately, giving a small nod. "You should be resting," she said, her tone softer than before. "I will," he replied. "When everyone else is patched up." Her tail flicked once, a gesture of quiet amusement. "You humans are strange." "Yeah," he said with a tired smile. "We get that a lot." She walked closer, her gaze steady. "The Council has heard of your actions." Word spreads quickly through the fleet. "Many are conflicted." "Conflicted?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "You are a human who saved Vel'Na lives. Some see you as a symbol of weakness. Others call you proof that peace is possible." Eli leaned against the medical table. "And what do you see?" Tessari hesitated. Her claws tapped the floor softly. "I see someone who does not belong to this war. Someone who should have died in the dust, yet chose to save the one who should have killed him." He met her eyes. Maybe that's how peace starts, when two people do what they shouldn't. Her expression softened, and for the first time she smiled, not the sharp, guarded smile of a commander, but a real one. Before they could say more, the medbay doors opened. General Cora entered with 2 guards. His armor was scorched, his face marked by ash, but his posture was still proud. "Commander," he said, his tone stiff, "the Council demands your presence. They also wish to see the human." Tessari narrowed her eyes. "Now? The decision regarding his fate has been made," Cora replied. Eli sighed, muttering, "Here we go again." They followed Cora through the corridors to the Hall of Command. When the doors opened, dozens of Vel'Na officers stood waiting. At the center, a projection of the High Council flickered. The same 3 figures who had judged Eli earlier. The central voice spoke first. "Eli Grant of Earth, the Vel'Na Council recognizes your actions during the Battle of Varth. You entered our ship as an enemy, but you saved hundreds of our soldiers, including Commander Tessari herself." The hall was silent. The glowing eyes of every soldier turned toward him. "Therefore," the counselor continued, "we offer you something no human has ever received. The Medal of Union, a symbol of Vel'Na honor." Tessari stepped forward. holding a small silver medallion engraved with twin stars crossing paths. She placed it around Eli's neck. Her hand lingered for a second longer than custom allowed. Eli looked at her, speechless. "I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing," Tisari said softly. "Just keep proving it mattered." The hall erupted in low murmurs. Some soldiers bowed their heads. Others turned away in disbelief. Cora's expression remained unreadable. When the ceremony ended, Tisari and Eli stood side by side at the viewport, watching the stars drift by. Below them, the planet glowed faintly through the smoke, blue and red lights mixing across the horizon. "Your world and mine," Tisari said quietly, "have fought for too long. Perhaps it's time we learn to heal instead." Eli nodded, one wound at a time. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer hostile. It was peaceful. The human medic and the alien commander, once enemies, now stood as allies, a symbol that mercy could survive even in war. Weeks passed since the battle above Varth. The once burning planet now shimmered with reconstruction lights from orbit, a quiet sign of change. The Vel'Na flagship hovered peacefully among the clouds, its engines humming low and steady. Inside, life had taken on a strange calm. Soldiers repairing decks, engineers fixing circuits, medics tending to both Vel'Na and a few rescued humans alike. Eli Grant walked through the corridor with slow, steady steps. The metal around his neck glinted under the soft blue light. He didn't wear it for pride. He wore it as a reminder of what it had cost. Every time he looked at it, he remembered the faces of those who didn't make it back. As he entered the observation deck, he found Commander Tisari standing there, looking out at the horizon. Her silhouette was calm, but her armor was gone. She wore a simple dark cloak, her silver eyes reflecting the twin suns below. "You walk like a soldier now," she said without turning. He smiled faintly. "And you talk like a philosopher." She glanced at him, the corners of her mouth twitching. Maybe the war made both of us something we weren't meant to be. Eli joined her at the window. Below them, reconstruction drones moved across the surface, rebuilding the ruins left by both species. "You've started working with humans?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Our council has approved a joint relief operation. Earth medics are assisting our healers. Your methods are strange, crude even, but effective," he chuckled. "We call that making do." Silence filled the room for a moment, broken only by the hum of the ship. Then she asked quietly, "Do you miss your home?" Eli looked out at the stars. "Every day, but maybe this is where I'm supposed to be." She tilted her head. "Among those who once wanted you dead?" He smiled softly. "Among those who finally understand why I didn't run." Tisari turned back toward the stars. "My people are not quick to change, Eli Grant. Even now there are voices that call for war. They say mercy weakens us. Then you show them it doesn't," he said. "You already have." She was silent for a moment, then sighed. "Perhaps. But peace is fragile. It needs guardians, not warriors." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Then maybe that's what we are now." Her silver eyes met his. "Guardians? Of something better than war," he said. They stood there quietly, watching light ripple across the stars. A chime interrupted the silence. A young officer entered, bowing slightly. "Commander, the first joint summit is ready. Human envoys await your arrival." Tisari nodded. "Prepare the shuttle." The officer left quickly. Eli raised an eyebrow. "A summit?" "Yes," she replied. "Your leaders and mine will meet face to face. No translators, no weapons. Only words," he gave a half smile. "That's more dangerous than battle." She laughed softly, a rare melodic sound. "Then you will come with me." "Me?" he asked, surprised. "You are the bridge between our worlds," she said. "They will listen to you. You speak truth without fear." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Commander. But if they start arguing, I'm hiding behind you." Her eyes gleamed. "Then they will have to go through me first." Hours later, the shuttle descended through the clouds, its hull glowing golden in the sunlight. On the surface, a vast clearing had been prepared. Half human technology, half Vel'Na architecture standing side by side. Flags of both worlds waved gently in the breeze. Eli stepped out first, his boots sinking slightly into the dust of the battlefield that had once nearly killed him. He looked around, where craters once burned. New flowers now grew, strange and beautiful. Red and blue petals twisting together. Tessari walked beside him, her limp barely noticeable now. "Do you see them?" she asked softly. "Red and blue, our colors," he smiled. Fitting. They reached the center of the field where both sides awaited. The crowd fell silent as they stopped between them, the human medic and the alien commander. Eli turned to her. "You gave me back my purpose, Tessari." She looked at him with quiet pride. "And you gave me something I had forgotten existed, hope." The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of dust and flowers. As the first peace words were spoken, Eli looked toward the twin suns rising over Varth and whispered, "Let no one bleed for nothing again." And for the first time in living memory, the stars above Varth shone not on war but on peace.